I feel betrayed by my girlfriend from the way we entered into our relationship, and I feel deceived about how she has portrayed herself. We met 3 years ago at a party of a mutual friend. Once we were introduced, we ended up spending the entire rest of the party just sitting and talking to one another. It really felt like we were the only two people there, and as the night ended, she told me that she really enjoyed talking to me and asked me for my number, which was a first for me. I awoke the next morning to a text from her telling how much she enjoyed talking with me and wanted to know if I would be interested in getting together to talk some more. I agreed, and that next weekend, we met at a local bookstore/coffee house where we proceeded to spend 5 hours talking until the shop kicked us out because they were closing. Not once in either of the conversations did we talk about anything romantic or love or anything like that. It was everything from philosophy to economics to religion and everything in between. Once again, she tells me she has had a great time and asks if we can do this again. We set a time for the next weekend, and same exact thing happens again. This goes on for 3 more times, and I am very confused as to what this is. Are we just friends getting together to talk? Is this going anywhere else? I had no idea. She sends me a text that week prior to meeting, telling me that I am the easiest person she has ever talked to, and that she feels totally comfortable and safe being with me. So finally, at the end of the day, when she says she wants to do this again, I just said that I was curious as to what she considered these times together as. I asked if we are just friends, or was there a possibility of being more? She said that she really enjoyed our time together and would like to see where it goes. Next time we are together, as we are talking, I kind of reached out and took her hand, and we held hands for the first time for several minutes. I tell her at the end of this night that next time I would like to do something different with her and took her to the movies. Things went well, and during the movie I put my arm around her and she laid her head on my shoulder. As we parted that night, I gathered up my courage and leaned in to give her a kiss goodnight. Her response was not what I expected. She actually withdrew from my attempt, and I immediately apologized to her and felt like a total heel. She said that I didn't need to apologize, but she was just a little shocked as she wasn't expecting it. I quickly apologized again and withdrew for the night, embarrassed beyond belief. She texted me the very next day saying she was sorry about the night before. She really liked me and wants to move that direction in our relationship, but she wanted to take things slow. I replied saying that I was willing to go at whatever speed she wanted, and again, apologized because I felt really bad. Now, mind you, while I said I was willing to go at her speed, and I was really confused by what taking it slow meant. We had been seeing each other once a week for hours at a time for over 2 months. But being very inexperienced in the relationship game, as I only had a girlfriend in high school and went out on dates in college, but mostly as friends and nothing ever lasted, I just thought that I would let her take the lead. We went out 2 more times, and then at the beginning of our next date, she actually greeted me with a kiss. From there, our relationship advanced at what I consider a normal pace. A 1.5 years later, we were living together, and in my opinion, everything was going great. That is until 2 weeks ago, she had to pick me up at my work because my car was in the shop. She pulled up and was sitting in the car, and one of my co-workers who I'm friendly with came out with me as he was leaving at the same time. I introduced them from a distance, but clearly within view of each other. They waved hello, and we left. The next day I came back, and he said he wanted to make sure there wasn't going to be a problem between the two of us. I asked him why would there be, and he said, "She didn't say anything to you." I said she did not, and he said, well, it was a couple of years ago, so she may not even remember him, and then he proceeds to tell me that they matched up on Tinder and would hook up with each other, and it went on for a few months before he started dating his current girlfriend. I told him that it might have been a different person, and he then proceeds to show me her Tinder profile. I have never used the site before, so I wasn't sure how to look at anything, but he said that it does not look like she is active and on there now, and hasn't been for a while. But the fact of the matter was that for sure it was her, and to make matters worse, I didn't tell him this, but the time frame that he was saying was also some of the same time that we were together in the beginning. The times I was rebuked for leaning in for a kiss, and quite possibly even after this. He could tell this was bothering me, and he apologized, but said that I needed to know that they were never dating or anything. It was just getting together to have sex, as though I was supposed to be okay with that. He didn't want to say much else, but he said that I should know that he knows for a fact that he wasn't the only one. Needless to say, this all upset me greatly, but I didn't know what to do or how to handle this. It was eating away at me, and I did something I probably shouldn't have done, but we share an Outlook calendar, and have for over a year, so that we can plan our events. While she was gone, I looked at her laptop and found her Outlook, which was nothing more than what we shared. However, I noticed that she had a separate calendar, and it was not password protected. I went back on her calendar, even though I knew it was wrong, and sure as crap, there was his first name. And yes, for fact, some of those dates were after we were already past the getting to know you stage. But wait, there's more. Not only was his name there, but there were several other guys' names. There were weeks where she had a different name on every day of the week, and twice had 2 names on weekend days. What made me the sickest of all, though, was looking at the weeks where we were early on in our relationship, when I had to basically be afraid to hold her hand, that she was meeting with other guys that week, and even one time earlier in the day that we met. How do I know this, you might ask? Well, my name was on there as well. Now, it does appear that about 5 months after we started dating, the names mostly stopped, and by a year in, there were no more names. But what really sucks is that one guy's name is on there more than others, and this is a guy who she has brought to our house on more than one occasion and introduced us. She has never once told me that they were ever sexual partners. In fact, that's kind of what pisses me off about all of this. Frankly, if I didn't know any of this, I would tell you she was a prude. Sex is very vanilla, and I always have to initiate it. However, she just told me not more than a month ago that she feels like I'm her soulmate, and she loves me with all of her heart. This is causing me a lot of pain, to be honest. I don't think I can live with this. The fact that I had to wait for months to even kiss and hold hands, while all along she was getting sex from a variety of people, makes me feel like absolute crap. The fact that I honestly was beating myself up after trying for a kiss really pisses me off. Then there is a part of me that says I'm not good enough. Sure, she may enjoy my personality or whatever, but obviously the fact that I'm not attractive enough for her to want to be with me early on really bothers me. I mean, it would be one thing if she did all of this before we met, but there are names marked clearly after we were involved just before we moved in together, including the guy that I work with. I have yet to confront her, I don't know what I'm going to do or say. There is a very large part of me that just wants out of this. I feel like she's not the person she portrayed herself to be. Oh, believe me, she is a very judgmental person and has tons of opinions and comes across as holier than thou, even though she's not religious per se. Has anyone else ever had to deal with this? A number of people who have commented already have mentioned that she was probably weighing up her options and such before committing to you, and mentioned that it's a relatively common thing to do. And to an extent, they're right, but there's one serious issue here. When a person wants to date in this manner, the onus is on them to ensure that their partners are aware of this. That way, everyone knows where they stand, can act accordingly, and there is less risk of feelings being hurt. But based on what I've read here, this girl has done the exact opposite of that. Seriously? She didn't even tell him about this after they were together? This is enough of a breach of trust that I would certainly understand if you ended things outright, OP. Still, you could bring it up to her. You don't even have to mention the computer, just mentioning what the coworker said would give you both plenty to discuss. Multi-dating before being official isn't an issue to me. I've done it too, and to some extent, it's a part of the game for many people. Though I've given previous significant others a heads up that I'm in exploration stage, so to say. I'm a very open dude. However, that part with her introducing a guy who she screwed to you several times on purpose without saying anything, or omitting the part where she hooked up with your coworker, is pretty crap in my honest opinion. Especially bringing that guy in. I would never do that, and I'm a pretty open-minded person. It also feels like a kink. That alone would be enough to leave a bad taste in my mouth, so I can empathize with how you feel considering you are more reserved in the pre-getting official dating stage. Sorry, my man. I didn't get this part. Quote, now it does appear that about 5 months after we started dating, the names mostly stopped. Maybe because your post was long? I didn't get at what point did you actually start dating for real. 5 months in with some names still appearing doesn't sound good at all. And OP replies, that's really the problem here. I have no idea when to say we started dating. There was never an official declaration or anything ever really. We started going out weekends, and it just kept slowly progressing to where one day we were kissing, then a few dates after that we slept together for the first time, and then eventually moved in together. She was telling me early on that she was developing feelings for me. So in other words, I am totally screwed up over this because I don't know how to view this. For that matter, we still have never defined the relationship, although we live together. But at the end of the day, I am not in a court of law here. This is far more about emotions for me than technicality. As I said, I feel for you, my man. Sorry that you've found yourself in such a situation. It seems that really, the only solution here is to have a frank, painfully open talk with her. You need to get this out of your system, else it will simmer slowly until it consumes you fully. Again, I am not blaming her for the approach that she had in the initial stages, but these small elements like introducing the guy and this absolute lack of clarity about your relationship are red flags to me. The guy introduction thing actually made me feel uncomfortable too. Have you been active in trying to define the relationship, or did you just assume that it might get defined by itself in time? How has she reacted if you've tried to define it after this initial multi-dating period that you mentioned in the post? Also, if you get to the talk, be very attentive of her reactions and how she frames the situation. It might be incompatibility in approach and values in the initial stage of dating, or it could be you getting settled for because she feels like her wild days are over. Never get settled for. That applies to both men and women. Rooting for you, bro. And now, onto the update. After thinking about this a lot, I decided that if everything was true, I didn't believe I could live with it. From my point of view, not only did it change the entire basically first year of our relationship, it fundamentally changed who I thought she was. I mean, we can all have different ways that we react around people, but there are some things, you can't just be one way one day and one way another day. But after reading some of the replies to my first post, I agreed with a couple of things. 1. Just because the names were there, it doesn't necessarily mean she was sleeping with or even dating those guys. As was said, my name was in there, and we sure as hell weren't having sex during a lot of these times. 2. Leaving without at least giving her a chance to explain things seemed wrong as well. Which led to the dilemma that I faced. How do I tell her that I know about all of these names? As a reminder, I snooped. I certainly could just tell her about my coworker, but how would I know about all of the other names? So I just basically decided to tell her about the coworker and see what happened from there. This was the most unpleasant conversation I've ever had, because on top of everything, the girlfriend I've had has been great. We've never fought or even had a hint of disagreement or betrayal. I love who I thought she was, so I couldn't just bail without at least talking about it. She acted like she didn't know my coworker. She acted like she was shocked he would say this, and said honestly she didn't remember him. At first, I was buying everything she was selling because I wanted to, and also because she was very convincing. However, I showed her the Tinder profile, and she started to get a little defensive. She said yes, she had Tinder at one time, but hasn't been on it for years, which according to my coworker was true. So I was just going to drop it and just go on, but at the last minute I said to her, he told me the dates that you went out and how it crossed times with when you and I were together, to which she said he was lying because it ended well before we became a couple. That is when I knew she was lying. She had told me that she didn't recognize him, but when confronted with the timeline, she now claimed to know him and said timeline was wrong. When I pointed out her logical flaw to her, she became frustrated and started crying. My initial response was to comfort her, but midway through doing that, I decided that she might very well be doing this to manipulate me, and said that while I was there for her, I wanted to know the truth. And this is where I sort of lied to her. I told her he provided me with in-depth timeline and showed me the dates on his calendar. She said she honestly did not know when, but she thought that it was over before we became a couple. This is when I made my mistake of asking when did she consider us a couple. She said she considered us a couple when we moved in together. Let me remind everyone that we were seeing each other for almost 2 years before we moved in together. So I asked her during that time frame if she had dated anyone else. She was emphatic that she didn't date anyone at all. So I know it was crude, but I just came out and said, okay, maybe not date anyone, but did you have sex with anyone? She didn't answer me, and I knew my answer. By this time, she is crying uncontrollably, telling me how much she loved me, how everything was way in the past, etc., etc. I decided to give her a break before I confronted her because she legitimately was hyperventilating. Once she calmed down, I just said that I knew about the guy who she brought to our house as well. This one was obviously a subject that she was dreading because she went from crying hysterically to pale as a ghost. At this point, she starts trying to apologize and says that none of the other guys have ever meant anything to her and that I am the love of her life. I told her that the only way I would even consider working through this would be for her to come clean 100% right there and then. And I kind of let her know that I already know other things and would tell how I know if I have to. This was the one thing I now regret because she just flat out told me everything. Things I never in a million years wanted to know. Including confirming that yes, she has met with Tinder dates twice on days that we met later in the evening. She said she did not consider us official, and we hadn't even really said what we were doing was dating with those 2 times. Date-wise, she is correct from the standpoint that this was before we kissed. Anyway, I told her that I needed time to think about it and told her that I was going to stay with a friend. She begged me not to go, she very legitimately was upset, and said none of this was meant to hurt me. She didn't understand why I was so upset about the stuff from before we met, but said she sees why I would be upset about things that happened after we met. I left to stay with a friend, but I agreed to keep the line of communications open. She sent me a very long, emotional text the next morning, explaining how as a teenager, she never respected herself and used sex to validate herself, and that she had never understood what a real relationship was or what love was until she met me. It was very long and detailed, but that was the gist of it. I responded that I thanked her for her honesty, but I laid out how her making me wait, and more to the point making me feel like a creep for just trying to reach out and kiss her while she was getting screwed by any number of guys, was very hurtful to me, and frankly, had made me doubt myself as a man and absolutely destroyed any romantic notions I had of our relationship. She did not respond to my text, so I could not decide if she was upset or mad at me. But a half hour later, my friend tells me she's at the door and she is very emotional. Did I want him to let her see me? I went to the door and she immediately begins crying harder than I've ever seen anyone cry. She couldn't even talk. She kept trying, but it made no sense. I got her to sit down and she threw herself at me trying to hug me. After she calmed down a little, she finally got out that she was so sorry she never meant to hurt me. Eventually, after quite some time, she calmed down enough to talk, and she let it be known that what I wrote to her was heartbreaking. She never even considered it that way. She tried to explain that she was so in love with me that she didn't want to mess it up with sex, and wanted us to be what she thought we had become. I let her go on, but eventually explained to her that while that may be her point of view, it certainly was not mine. I just went ahead and explained that it made me feel unattractive and less desirable than guys who supposedly meant nothing to her. Well, I went on for a while myself, but I'll spare you the details. I just told her that there was no way for me to go back to what we had because I do not view her as the same person anymore. That knowing that she willingly had sex with other people after she had sex with me was just a deal breaker. She jumped in and said that it never happened after we slept together. She said she would freely admit to sleeping with other guys up until we kissed, but after that night, she knew that she loved me and cut everything else out. I have no way of knowing, obviously. Of course, I have no faith in what she said. However, I do have her calendar, and it pretty much does show a rapid slowdown right around that time. I told her I still need time, And again, she texted that night with a very emotional letter, acknowledging my feelings over this, and told me the fact that she hurt me makes her feel worse than anything, that she would do anything to make this work. Swore that she has never and will never cheat on me since she fell in love with me. So I'm still here at my friend's house. I still don't know for sure what I'm going to do. I do love her, and I can tell she is not faking this at all. She is an emotional wreck. I've called her family to have them go check on her, just told them that we were having a rough time and would prefer to not answer anything else at this time. I again want to stress this because I don't think it came across in my first post. Her personality does not show any of this at all. In fact, she is quite judgmental about people who do what she did. She never said she was a virgin, by the way, so let's not go that far. But she absolutely led me to believe that she only believed in sex in the confines of a relationship. That is now a confirmed lie. I'm supposed to meet her Friday. I'm not sure if I will or won't. Sorry that it's not a finalized update, but I've gotten quite a few requests asking what's going on. I want to point out that she kept lying and trickle-truthing through this whole process. You had to pull all info out of her. It changed the more you questioned. Can you trust what she's saying now? Also, she has a damn good idea how you'd feel about this. That's why she kept it a secret and then lied at first questioning. It's unfortunate that I can only upvote this once. OP, you have to realize that this woman would not have told you anything about the situation had you not revealed how much you knew. Maybe she wasn't manipulative per se, but she was looking for every opportunity to weasel her way out of the situation. And she still is, considering she was so willing to violate your desire for distance. I said in your last post that I'd understand if you broke up with her over it, and since she still attempted to get more lies of omission by you, I really think you're at the point where you need to strongly consider whether a future with this girl is even possible. As you say yourself, the faith and trust in this relationship are completely gone. The rest usually follows, whether the couple wants it to or not. So, what is with the guy that she invited to your house? I guess that was at the time after you two already had sex. What about all the other guys? Is she still in contact with any of them? Have you asked her if she's ever gotten tested for STDs before she had sex with you, no matter if they used condoms or not? If she didn't, then do that now. No matter how long it's been, she needs to understand the risk that she exposed you to. You should get tested as well. Before you jump to any decision, really think deeply about if you can deal with what you have found out, because if you stay with her, while at the same time you can't let go of that, you will make both of your lives miserable. Dude, she didn't even respect your wish to have time away from her. I have no issue with people sleeping around, whether men or women. She's allowed to have a history before you, and she had no obligation to put out before she was ready to have a physical relationship with you. But some people here seem to be missing the point. This isn't about her body count or past history. This is about cheating while you two are in a monogamous relationship. You guys have been seeing each other for 3 years, moved in 2 years ago. It's safe to say that you were in a committed relationship way before you moved in. And you said the names of the guys she met in her calendar stopped being written 1 year after you started dating. At some point, it stopped being casual hookups with random guys while you were testing the waters and became actual cheating. She didn't respect your relationship before moving in, still doesn't respect you. She cheated on you. You were dating for almost 2 years before moving in, and she didn't consider you a couple? She's got audacity, I'll give her that. But there is no other way to put it. She cheated, and when confronted about it, she lied. When she couldn't deny it anymore, she deflected. She has never been honest with you, and just because she stopped updating her secret calendar doesn't mean she necessarily stopped seeing men behind your back. She didn't even think about deleting it. You will always have doubt if what she says is the truth or some deceit. You want to trust her, but can you? Maybe she stopped after you moved in together like she said, but can you forgive and move past the lying and the cheating? And just because in her mind it wasn't cheating, doesn't mean that it wasn't. Also, are her tears genuine? Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. Remember, she has been lying to you all this time about such important things. She also introduced you to one of the guys that she slept with without batting an eye, pretending not to remember your colleague. How can you say for sure that you know her and that she is genuine? She is giving you the most ridiculous reasons and excuses. She's full of lies and is playing you like a violin. And now onto our final update. I'm sorry for making another post. I was going to tack this on my last one, but for some reason my post kept getting locked, and I haven't even been able to respond to people on the second one. I have been getting buried in chat requests and private messages asking me for an update. So instead of answering each one, I'm just going to post this here and hope that it doesn't get deleted. Late Thursday afternoon, I met with a friend who knew of her but had never met her. I wanted someone with a complete fresh perspective and outside voice. In other words, someone who didn't know her and had formed an opinion of her. I explained everything that I wrote in the first 2 posts and just asked his opinion. He said that he wasn't going to give an opinion because he and I were not alike, but what he would do is ask me to consider some questions. 1. Would I have pursued her if I knew that she was actively having sex with multiple partners? 2. Would I have willingly continued the relationship early on if I knew that she was coming on obvious dates with me, but was having sex with multiple partners? 3. Knowing now what I didn't know then, do I see her as the same person who I dated, fell in love with, and moved in together? And 4. Did I see a future with her where I would have an unconditional, trusting, loving relationship with her? He had other questions as well, but none were more or as important as these. I don't know why, but these questions made it crystal clear what my thoughts were and what I had to do. It doesn't mean that it was easy, nor did I like it. On Friday, I took the day off of work and 2 of my friends came with me, and while she was at work, I packed up everything that was mine from our apartment and moved it to storage. Fortunately, I don't earn that much, and decided that anything we bought together I would leave at the apartment with her. Fortunately, we are already out of our lease, and we were just renting month to month, so there is no long-term financial issue for me. But I did not want to be unfair, so I went to my savings and drew out 6 months of what would have been my part of the rent. She got home from work at around 5:30, and when she came in, she immediately saw my stuff was gone, and she dropped her bag on the floor and sat on the couch and started crying. This was the hardest thing that I've ever done in my life, and I ended up crying almost as much as she did. I just explained to her that she did not deserve to be with someone who had any doubts about her or had anything but a total positive image of who she is. I told her that I had to work on myself because in talking with my friend and reading on here, I found out that a lot of my ideas around sex and relationships are not in line with today's thinking, and I know I have to somehow get past that. I am certain she will be far better off without me because at the end of the day, I just can't be who she needs me to be. I wish I could. I wish I could just view it as no big deal, but I do. Anyway, I stayed as long as it made sense to try and comfort her, but at the end of the day, I was not doing it, so I left her curled up on the couch in tears. This certainly did not end how I thought it would or hoped it would, but at the end of the day, we are both very young and life is too short. She will easily find a new guy, and I'm going to work on myself and see if I can't grow from this. Also, before I go, I do want to respond to what several people have said about my coworker, who is the one who started all this. Obviously, I will never know his true motivation. He could just be a troublemaker, as some have stated, and I'll never know. However, my belief is that he was afraid that she said something and did not want there to be an issue between us at work. By both of their accounts, he is the one who cut it off with her to date the girl he is with now. So while it could be jealousy or whatever, I kind of doubt it. If he wanted to be with her, I think he probably still could have been because he ended whatever their relationship was. TLDR, friend asks me a series of questions that clarified my entire thought process towards this. Ended things on Friday, both of us are miserable, but ultimately this will be better for her in the long run. Dude, you gave her your share of the rent for 6 months? What the fuck? Yeah, why isn't anyone mentioning this? OP, please tell us you didn't hand her an envelope full of cash after this whole mess you just dealt with? Oh, you cheated on me regularly with 20 dudes and got screwed senseless while I got shamed for kissing your cheek? Well, I'm sorry that I'm weird and old-fashioned and therefore have to end this relationship. Here's 10k USD. OP, My reading of your posts are that of someone who doesn't value himself and has a low self-esteem. Good for you that you ended it, but how are you blaming yourself at all? Feels like, to me, that OP has no self-respect. She basically shamed him, cheated on him with multiple guys, and OP still thinks she's the one who deserves better, gives her money and just takes all the blame? Good that he finally left this relationship, but holy moly, he has a lot to learn about self-worth and self-love. You don't have to change your views on sex, my guy. Not wanting your partner to be having sex with multiple partners and lying about it by omission is not an unpopular opinion, even by today's standards. Best of luck to you. Dude, your coworker wised you up, otherwise you will never know the truth about her and probably married her. You should thank him. And him jealous of you? I don't think so. OP's friend asked some great questions. Seriously, so great that until that part I was 100% on give her a chance, she was still figuring out how sex and relationships work. After those questions, I shifted to crap. That's a really lousy foundation on which to build a lasting relationship with someone, no matter what her thinking was. As a wise Redditor once said, if I stay in this relationship, will I ever be able to forget this happened? You can forgive her, but can you live with it? The part that I can't get over is that she didn't see them as a couple until they moved in together. She said she stopped sleeping with anyone else at that point, but then later said she stopped sleeping with other guys after she slept with him. So which is it? Too many holes in her story, and she lied over and over again until he called her out. I would never trust her again. I agree. And why would she keep bringing over a guy that she had slept with right before OP over to OP and her home multiple times to hang out with them and not let OP know about their past? I would be super uncomfortable with the fact that she was hiding that. I assume they were friends with benefits or whatever, but you let your significant other know. Also, she probably told that guy not to mention anything, which would mean she was at least aware that it would be an issue. If she hadn't, I can't imagine there wouldn't have been some joke or mention in a story or similar. I don't know that everyone has the modern mindset of dating like his bro claims. Even when I was dating, it came up with every person what the other person was doing as far as dates go. Hookup, long-term, dating lots of people, etc. Not talking about that isn't modern dating. It's just an excuse for being a shitty communicator and being okay with hurting other people. It takes like 5 minutes tops to bring it up and talk about it. Gonna venture a guess and say that most modern people would consider themselves in a relationship well before they reach the stage of moving in together. I'm not saying homie doesn't need to work on himself, but X was full of crap. Alright guys, that's where I'm gonna finish today's episode. If you enjoyed it, let me know what you thought about it in the comments down below, and I'll see you later. Bye.